Picture this. It's midnight, and Pharaoh decides to host a little late-night meeting with Moses and Aaron. The moon is high, casting long shadows across the royal palace. The air is thick with tension as Pharaoh, the ruler of one of the greatest civilizations of the time, summons two humble men into his presence. Now, this isn't your usual meet and greet. Pharaoh isn't looking to discuss state affairs or diplomatic ties. No, the ruler of Egypt has something far more urgent on his mind. With a voice that echoes through the grand halls of the palace, he makes a startling demand. "Get out of here," he commands. "Take your people, your flocks, and go serve the Lord." Imagine the surprise on Moses and Aaron's faces. After all, they have been advocating for this moment, but the abruptness of Pharaoh's decision must surely have caught them off guard. Yet the surprises don't end there. As they turn to leave, Pharaoh, the mighty ruler who had once enslaved their people, humbles himself with a request. "Bless me also," he implores them. In the face of losing his entire workforce, the Pharaoh seeks a blessing from the very men he had oppressed. It's a scene dripping with irony and a testament to the shifting power dynamics at play. But there's more to this request than meets the eye. It's not just about the blessing. It's a tacit acknowledgement of the power and supremacy of the God that Moses and Aaron serve. A God who had brought mighty Egypt to its knees with a series of plagues. A God who had forced the hand of the Pharaoh to finally let his people go. So as Moses and Aaron step out of the palace into the cool Egyptian night, they carry with them the weight of their people's freedom and a blessing request from the most unlikely of sources. Talk about a dramatic exit. The Egyptians, catching wind of the Israelites' departure, turn into the ultimate cheerleaders, urging them to leave ASAP. Now, you might be wondering, why the sudden change of heart? Well, it was all down to fear. A fear so palpable it hung in the air like a dense fog, seeping into every Egyptian home, every Egyptian heart. They were convinced that they were all about to die. Imagine the scene. Egyptians, once the masters, now reduced to trembling wrecks, practically begging the Israelites to leave. The same Israelites they had enslaved and oppressed for so long. The irony, right? It was as if they saw the writing on the wall, a prophecy of their own impending doom if the Israelites didn't leave. But the Israelites weren't about to leave empty-handed. No, sir. They had been slaves for far too long, and it was time for some payback. In their haste to leave, they started asking the Egyptians for silver and gold, clothing, and anything they could get their hands on. And the Egyptians, in their fear, complied. It was a hasty handover, a frantic exchange. The Israelites were leaving, and the Egyptians couldn't be happier to see them go. But here's where it gets interesting. It wasn't just the fear-stricken Egyptians who were urging the Israelites on. The Lord was also doing his bit. You see, the Lord had given the Israelites favor in the eyes of the Egyptians. He had turned the tables in such a way that the Egyptians were practically throwing their valuables at the Israelites. It was as if the Lord was their personal genie, granting them this one wish, this one chance at reparation for years of enslavement and hardship. So the Israelites, loaded with Egyptian silver, gold, and clothing, made haste to leave. They had their freedom, they had their loot, and they had the backing of the Lord. It was a moment of triumph, a moment of redemption. However, little did they know their journey had only just begun. The Lord's like their personal genie, making the Egyptians hand over whatever they want. Loot alert! It's not a small crew. We're talking about 600,000 men on foot, plus a mixed multitude of others tagging along with flocks and herds. Imagine that for a moment, a sea of humanity moving as one, a veritable tidal wave of determination and faith. It's not just men, mind you, but women, children, and the elderly, all on a mission to leave the land that had been their home and prison for generations. And let's not forget the animals, the bleating of sheep, the lowing of cows, the clucking of chickens. It's a cacophony of sounds that adds to the grandeur of this grand exodus. This isn't a quiet, stealthy escape in the dead of night. No, this is a loud, bold statement, a declaration to the world that the Israelites are leaving Egypt, not as slaves but as free people. But amidst the chaos and the excitement, the Israelites do not forget the necessity of sustenance. They have to eat after all. And this is where their resourcefulness really shines through. Remember the dough they grabbed in their haste? Well, they put it to good use, baking cakes without yeast as they journeyed. Now, you might wonder why they didn't just wait for the dough to rise. But time was of the essence. They couldn't afford to wait. And besides, there's a certain symbolism in the unleavened bread. It's a reminder of their haste, of the urgency of their departure, and of the hardships they were willing to endure for their freedom. So there they are, a motley crew of 600,000 men, plus a mixed multitude of others, all moving as one, driven by a common purpose. They have their dough, their flocks, and their herds. They have their faith, and they have each other. They're ready for the journey ahead, ready to face whatever challenges may come their way. Survival mode activated. Just to put things into perspective, the Israelites spent a whopping 430 years in Egypt. Now, that's not a short vacation or a brief pit stop. We're talking about generations of life, growth, and struggle in a land that was not their own. Picture this. The Israelites entered Egypt as a small family and left as a vast nation. Talk about population explosion. Now here's the intriguing part. This wasn't a haphazard spur-of-the-moment exit. It wasn't as if they got up one morning and thought, "Oh, let's pack our bags and head out." No, this was a departure that had been centuries in the making. Consider the enormity of the task. The Israelites, after 430 years, were leaving behind their homes, their routines, everything they had known. From the youngest child to the oldest elder, every single Israelite was stepping into an uncertain future, guided only by their faith in the Lord. But let's delve a little deeper into the timing of their departure. The Israelites didn't just wake up one day and decide to leave. They left on the very day after those 430 years. That's right, the countdown had begun, and the day of their liberation had arrived. It's as if every second, every minute, every hour of those centuries was leading up to this one monumental moment. And when the time came, they didn't trickle out in small groups or scatter in different directions. No, they moved as one, unified force. All the regiments of the Lord rolled out of Egypt together, like a well-planned military operation. It was a mass exodus, a sea of humanity surging forward, propelled by the promise of a better future. So it wasn't just a departure, it was a declaration of freedom, a testament to their unwavering faith, and a bold step towards their destiny. The Israelites, after 430 years, were finally going home. Talk about precision planning! Now the Lord dropped some Passover knowledge on Moses and Aaron. It's not just any feast, it's the Passover, a meal with rules as unique as the story itself. The Lord, in his divine wisdom, puts forth a protocol: no foreigners allowed. Well, almost. Here's the thing. This feast is not a free-for-all, it's an exclusive gathering. So if you're a foreigner, you can't just waltz in and grab a plate. But the Lord, being inclusive in his own way, does provide a workaround. If a resident foreigner wishes to partake in the Passover, they're welcome to do so. But there's a catch: they must be circumcised first. So, in essence, the Passover is a closed party, but with a door left slightly ajar for those willing to meet the criteria. It's an interesting blend of exclusivity and inclusivity, isn't it? No uncircumcised folks allowed at this feast. And there you have it, the Exodus in a nutshell. We've been through an astonishing journey, from a midnight summons by Pharaoh to the Egyptian urgency that pushed the Israelites to leave in haste. A grand exodus led by a staggering 600,000 men and a mixed multitude, carrying with them the spoils of Egypt. Remember the enormity of their stay in Egypt? An astounding 430 years, and they left on the exact day the countdown ended. Incredible, isn't it? And let's not forget the exclusive Passover feast, with its unique rules and protocols. Each of these events, a testament to the remarkable tale of the Exodus, a narrative rich with drama, miracles, and divine intervention. This night is not just any night, it's a night of vigil for the Lord, and it's marked as a tradition for generations to come. Until next time, let's continue to delight in the word of the God.